The night before my son's wedding, his fiancée looked me in the eye and said, "After tomorrow, you're not part of this family." Before we continue, please subscribe to this channel and let me know where you're listening from in the comments. My name is Claire Miller. I am 62 years old, and until that moment, I believed my greatest achievement was my son, David. I held the polished velvet box containing the Miller family wedding rings, feeling the weight of 5 generations. My mother placed them in my hands before my own wedding to Robert, and I promised to pass them to David when he found true love. I thought today was that day. I arrived at David's modern downtown apartment, the box tucked safely in my purse. The air smelled of new paint and ambition, not the warm cinnamon and old books of my own home. I heard their voices before I saw them, sharp and tense, cutting through the hallway. "You need to get them tonight, David. It's the final piece." That was Stacy's voice, cool and insistent. I know. She's bringing them for the rehearsal dinner. It'll be fine." David's reply was weary, a familiar tone he'd used since childhood when cornered. "It has to be tonight. The valuation from the auction house is final. We signed the consignment papers Monday. The transfer is all set." My hand froze on the door handle. Auction house? Consignment? Stacy, they're heirlooms. They're my family. They are assets, David. Liquid assets. That Bali villa for the honeymoon doesn't pay for itself, and the architect needs the deposit for the new house yesterday. Once we have the rings and the cash, we're set. Then we change the locks on the cottage. It's just cleaner this way. She'll never accept our plans to sell it. The floor beneath me vanished. The cottage was my home, left to me by Robert. David had always said he loved it. It was all a performance. I must have made a sound. The door swung open. Stacy stood there, perfect in her silk robe, her smile not reaching her eyes. "Claire, you're early." She didn't move to let me in. David appeared behind her, his face pale. "Mom, we were just planning." I finished for him, my voice strangely calm. I stepped inside, the weight in my purse feeling like a stone. Planning to sell my rings. Planning to sell my home. Stacy's facade cracked for a second, revealing pure irritation. She exchanged a look with David, a silent communication that excluded me entirely. He looked at the floor. "It's not like that," David began, but Stacy cut him off. "It's exactly like that, Claire." She crossed her arms, a general addressing a subordinate. "We have a vision for our future. A future that requires capital. Sentimentality doesn't build a portfolio. That cottage is on prime land. It's wasteful for one person." I looked only at my son. "David, is this your vision too?" He couldn't meet my gaze. "Mom, you don't understand the pressure. The market. Stacy has it all figured out. It's for the best." The final pillar of my world crumbled. Stacy saw her victory and pressed it. "Let's be clear," she said, stepping closer. Her perfume was expensive and suffocating. "After tomorrow, you're not part of this family. You'll be a guest on our terms. Don't call him every day. Don't just show up with your little stories and your casseroles. This is my family now. We're starting fresh. You're a chapter he needs to close." I waited for David to defend me, to say anything. He studied a speck on their pristine marble floor. The pain was so acute it instantly fossilized into something else. Something cold and solid. I nodded slowly, as if absorbing a difficult business proposition. "I see," I said, my voice devoid of all the tremor I felt inside. I turned and walked out of their apartment, leaving the rehearsal dinner forgotten. I did not look back. The drive home was a blur. But I did not cry. I walked into my quiet, beloved cottage, filled with the ghosts of Robert and a young, laughing David. I went to my oak desk, the one Robert built. I did not open the safe for the velvet box. Instead, I unlocked the bottom drawer and pulled out a heavy legal-sized envelope. Inside were 2 documents I had prayed I would never need. The first was the property deed for the Maple Grove Gardens. To David and Stacy, it was a charming, historic wedding venue they had booked for free. A generous gift from me. The deed, crisp and undeniable, listed the sole owner, Claire A. Miller. The second document was thicker. The Miller Family Trust, established by my father. David's inheritance was not a simple bank account. It was held in an irrevocable trust, with me as the sole trustee. He received a generous monthly allowance, but access to the principal required my approval or a triggering life event. Like a marriage built on mutual respect, not fraud. I had seen Stacy's calculations, but she had never seen mine. She saw a sweet old woman and a vault of treasures to plunder. She never saw the guardian of the vault. I picked up my phone. Not to call David. I dialed the number for my attorney, Benjamin Shaw. Ben, I said, my voice steady as steel. It's Claire Miller. The contingency plan we discussed. I need you to execute it first thing tomorrow morning. Yes. The injunction for trespass, the cease and desist for the attempted asset sale, and the trust freeze. All of it. I hung up. I then drafted a single email. I attached the scanned auction house correspondence I had secretly obtained weeks ago, the locksmith appointment for my cottage confirmed for Monday, and the financial projection Stacy had sent David titled Post-Wedding Asset Liquidation. I addressed it to every guest on the wedding list. I set it to send at 10:05 a.m., the moment the ceremony was meant to begin. My final act was to take the velvet ring box from my purse. I placed it, unopened, on the deed and the trust documents. 3 boxes. One held symbols of a love I thought was real. The other 2 held the true instruments of legacy and power. I looked at the clock. The wedding was in 12 hours. I would not be there. But my presence would be felt in every shocking, devastating detail. I had been erased from their family. Now, I would erase their perfect day from existence. The papers were signed. The emails were scheduled. The trap was set. The mother they took for a fool was gone. In her place was the trustee. The morning of the wedding dawned bright and clear over Maple Grove Gardens. Golden light filtered through the ancient oaks, and the staff put the final touches on the floral arch. It was a perfect scene meticulously crafted by Stacy. Every detail was a prop in the performance of her perfect life. The only missing piece was the mother of the groom. I was not in my cottage. I was in the small, private owner's office of the gardens, a room Stacy never knew existed. From the window, I had a clear view of the arriving guests and the pristine lawn where the ceremony would never happen. I wore a simple, elegant linen suit. I was not dressed for a wedding. I was dressed for business. Down on the lawn, David looked handsome and tense in his tuxedo. Stacy was a vision of white silk, her smile radiant and practiced as she greeted guests. They were playing their parts perfectly. At 9:55 a.m., the string quartet began to play. The guests were seated. The atmosphere shimmered with expectation. At 10 a.m. precisely, the first thread unraveled. A black sedan pulled up the gravel drive. A man in a crisp suit, carrying a long legal-sized envelope, emerged. He walked not with the hesitation of a guest, but with the purpose of a professional. He moved directly through the crowd toward David and Stacy, who stood at the head of the aisle. The music faltered. "David Miller?" the man asked, his voice carrying in the sudden quiet. "Yes. Can I help you?" David replied, his polite smile strained. "You've been served." The man placed the envelope in David's hands. Documents pertaining to case number 1147. Emergency injunction for trespass, cease and desist on the sale of contested assets, and notification of a full freeze on the Miller Family Trust assets. Have a good day. The man turned and left as swiftly as he had arrived. A stunned silence gripped the guests. David stared at the envelope. Stacy's perfect smile melted into confusion, then dawning horror. "What is this?" she hissed, snatching the envelope from David's limp hands. She tore it open, her eyes scanning the first page. Her face, so carefully made up, went ashen. "Trespass. This is our venue. She can't do this." David found his voice, but it was a panicked whisper the microphone picked up. "The deed. Mom owns the deed. We're just using it." "You said it was a gift." Stacy's voice rose, sharp and ugly in the holy space. "You said everything was handled." Before David could answer, the wedding planner, a flustered woman clutching a tablet, rushed to their side. "The caterer just called. The payment for the food and champagne was just declined. The card on file is frozen. The florist is saying the same thing." What is going on? Chaos, quiet and polite at first, began to ripple through the rows of guests. Whispers replaced music. Then, at 10:05 a.m., the digital kill shot arrived. 120 phones, belonging to 120 guests, buzzed or chimed in near unison. It was the sound of a planned detonation. People glanced down, curious. I watched from my window as postures changed. Leaning in, eyes widening, hands covering mouths. The confused murmuring turned into a swell of scandalized gossip. My scheduled email had landed. Attached was the proof. The auction house correspondence for the heirloom rings, the locksmith appointment to change the locks on my cottage, and Stacy's own financial projection titled Post-Wedding Asset Liquidation. My message was brief. You were invited to celebrate a union. I believe you should know what you are celebrating. Forgive the disruption, but some weeds must be pulled from the root. Claire. The public unraveling was swift and brutal. Stacy, finally understanding the scale of the catastrophe, turned on David. All pretense of graciousness vanished. You idiot, she shrieked, her voice echoing. You said she was just a sweet, clueless old woman. You said the house and the trust were basically ours. You told me everything was under control. David flinched as if struck. I thought it was. How was I supposed to know she had all this? Because she's your mother. A voice called from the crowd, an aunt I'd always liked. The dam of social pretense broke. Stacy grabbed the front of David's tuxedo jacket, her bouquet falling to the grass. You've ruined everything. This was all for nothing. In her rage, she confirmed every accusation in the email for all to hear. I saw the exact moment David broke. It was not slow. It was a physical shattering, his shoulders collapsing as the truth of his own weakness and my calculated strength crashed down on him. He looked at the woman he was about to marry, her face twisted in greedy fury. He looked at the crowd of family and friends, their expressions a mix of pity and judgment. He saw the hollow arch where his future was supposed to start. He shoved Stacy's hands away. Stop it, he yelled, his own voice raw. Just stop. This isn't about the house or the money anymore, can't you see that? This is about you planning to throw my mother out of her home. This is about you selling my grandmother's rings before we even said I do. His confession, shouted to the heavens, was the final nail. The wedding planner made a sharp, decisive motion to the quartet. The music stopped entirely. The event was over. David turned his back on Stacy, on the arch, on the ruins of the day. He stumbled down the aisle, past rows of stunned faces, and broke into a run toward the main building. He was coming to find me. I left the window and sat calmly behind the old oak desk in the office. I listened to his frantic footsteps in the hall, the throw of the door. He stood there, breathless, his tuxedo disheveled, his eyes wild. Mom. The word was a gasp. I said nothing. I simply waited. He saw the deed and trust papers on the desk. He saw the unopened velvet ring box. He saw me not heartbroken but resolved. Why, he choked out. Why would you do this? Why today? I looked at my son, my voice as steady as it was cold. You made your choice last night, David. You chose her plan to liquidate our family. Today, I am simply executing mine to protect it. The trustee has a fiduciary duty. He crumpled into the chair opposite me, a boy lost. What does that even mean? It means the trust is frozen. Your allowance is stopped. The principal is locked away from you and her forever. It means this property, I said, gesturing to the gardens around us, is mine to run, not yours to exploit. It means you have no home to change the locks on. I reached into my desk drawer. I slid a single, new key across the polished wood toward him. What's this? He whispered. A key. To a small apartment downtown. The lease is paid for 6 months. It has a bed, a table, and a kitchen. Start from the beginning, David. Just like you wanted. Just without me. And without my money. I stood up, my business complete. The mother they tried to erase had just rewritten the story. Act 2 was over. The collapse was total. 6 months later, Maple Grove Gardens thrived. The scandal had faded into a powerful local legend, and business was better than ever. People booked the venue for its beauty, but also for its story, a story of a woman who took back her life. I, Claire Miller, was no longer just a mother or a widow. I was the respected proprietor. On a crisp autumn afternoon, I was in my office reviewing ledgers when my assistant said a man was here to see me. He didn't need to give a name. I knew. David stood at the doorway. The 6 months had not been kind. His expensive clothes were gone, replaced with a simple, worn jacket. He looked older, thinner, with a new fatigue in his eyes. The arrogant gloss had been sanded away by hardship. Stacy, I had heard, left the city within a week of the collapsed wedding. Mom, he said, the word sounding rusty. David, I replied, gesturing for him to sit. My tone was civil, the way one speaks to a distant acquaintance. What can I do for you? He sat, fidgeting with the hem of his jacket. I came to apologize. I stayed silent, letting him find the words. I'm sorry, he said, finally meeting my eyes. For everything. For listening to her. For not stopping her. For thinking, he trailed off, the shame still fresh. I was weak. And stupid. I nodded, acknowledging the truth of his words, but not absolving him. You were. You betrayed your family for a promise of an easier life. That has a cost. I know, he said, his shoulders slumping. I've lost everything. The apartment lease is up next month. My job. It didn't work out. I have nothing. He paused, and I saw the familiar calculation flicker in his eyes, the ghost of his old self. I was hoping, maybe we could talk about a fresh start. Maybe there's a way to fix the trust. There it was. The apology was real, but its purpose was still transactional. He was broke, and he saw me once again as a vault. I leaned back, my gaze steady. The trust is not broken, David. It is fulfilled. Its purpose was to preserve our family's legacy for a future built on respect. You chose a different path. That money is now an endowment for this garden, ensuring its care for generations. Your fresh start will not be funded by the past you tried to sell. His face fell, the last of his hope extinguishing. He looked truly lost. I did not leave him in the rubble. I opened my desk drawer, but not the one that once held legal documents. This drawer held business cards. I selected 2 and slid them across the desk. This is not a check, I said. This is the name of a career counselor I trust. She helps people find their footing based on their own skills, not their family's name. And this is for a financial literacy course at the community college. If you are serious about a fresh start, these are your first steps. Build something yourself. If you do, and you build it well, you will always have a mother who is proud of you. But you will never again have a bank. He stared at the cards, a simple, profound offering. It was not what he wanted, but it was what he needed. He picked them up slowly, the paper feeling foreign in his hands. A real tool, not a token. Thank you, he whispered, and for the first time it felt genuine. He left without asking for more. I watched him walk through the thriving gardens, past the stone arch that was now just a beautiful structure, not an altar of betrayal. He did not look back. On my desk, the small velvet ring box sat. I opened it. It was no longer empty. Inside, I had placed 2 polished stones from the garden's riverbed, smooth, solid, and of no monetary value to anyone but me. They were a new heirloom, a symbol of strength that comes from within, not from a will. The legacy was no longer a thing to be given. It was a lesson that had been learned. The mother was gone. The trustee's work was complete. Claire Miller, the woman, was finally free. If this story of finding strength and setting boundaries resonated with you, do one important thing for me. Subscribe to this channel. Click that button. It tells the world that stories like mine have power, that our voices matter. Leave a comment below, and tell me where you are listening from. Your stories and your support build this community of resilience. Thank you for listening. Remember, your peace is your most precious legacy. Protect it.